Massachusetts. So we thank you all for coming out here on short notice. This morning, news reports suggest that President Trump has decided to pull the United States out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Our country's can-do spirit is what makes America great, but President Trump is telling the world that the United States is a can't-do nation. Instead of keeping our commitment to the world, Donald Trump would rather join Syria's Bashar al-Assad and Nicaragua's Daniel Ortega as the world leaders who refuse to participate in the Paris Climate Agreement. Keeping an empty campaign promise is not more important than keeping our promise to the world to combat climate change. Withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement will be a massive economic, security, and moral failure for President Trump and his administration, and it would be a disaster for America, for our businesses, for our health, and for our national security. Just look at the almost 60 Massachusetts-based investors, companies, and CEOs that have argued that it is in the best interest of the United States to stay in the Paris Agreement. Add to that the doctors, the scientists, the faith and national security leaders that have also urged that President Trump stay in the Paris Agreement. On Monday, we celebrated the 100th anniversary of the birth of President John F. Kennedy. How sad is it that in the same week, the current president could say that a challenge is too hard to meet for the United States. In 1961, we had a president urging American industry to respond to the challenge of the space race. Today, it is American companies challenging our president. Companies from Apple to GE to National Grid to Microsoft have called on President Trump to keep the United States in the Paris Climate Agreement. It's the Kennedy era turned upside down. It is JFK in reverse. We are in the building named after President Kennedy to honor our great president from this state. It is a sad day for our country. It is downright un-American for a president to abdicate American leadership to the great challenges facing our planet. Donald Trump is turning the United States from a climate leader into a climate laggard, and he is wrong. Here in Massachusetts, we know that you can cut your carbon pollution and grow your economy. Since the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative went into effect in 2009, the program has added almost $3 billion in economic value to the 9 participating states and saved consumers more than $1.5 billion. Massachusetts gross domestic product increased 25.8% from 2009 to 2015, while carbon emissions went down by 9.1% between 2009 and 2014. We now have 100,000 jobs in Massachusetts in the clean energy sector. It is one of the fastest growing sectors in the state, having added nearly 10,000 jobs every single year for the last 5 years to the Massachusetts economy. And while Massachusetts is a leader, we are not alone. All around the globe, renewable energy is beating out fossil fuels. In a recent auction in India, solar power sold at a price that was 24% less than the average price for electricity from coal. That price for solar in India was 50% less than it was just a year ago. In Mexico, solar power recently sold for 2.7 cents a kilowatt hour. Again, more competitive than coal in the marketplace. By succumbing to pressure from EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt and other advisors, President Trump is ceding the future to the Germans, to the Chinese, and to the Indians and other nations rather than having the United States continue to lead the world on clean energy solutions. By creating those technologies here at home and then deploying them around the world, we can have job creation here that is good for all of creation everywhere. President Trump says we can't meet this this generational challenge of climate change, even though the private sector says that we can. Instead of listening to business leaders, to Pope Francis, to his own daughter Ivanka, even to leaders of the fossil fuel industry, President Trump is choosing isolation over opportunity. History will judge Donald Trump very harshly for failing to meet this generation's greatest of all challenges. The people